Good morning to all of our guests. I can see lots of people have signed in. That's fantastic. On Zoom. We should also be live on Facebook as well. So welcome to anybody that's joined us there. This is the first of a new weekly series of business support live events. So every Friday at 11 a.m. We're going to be catching up on some of the latest legal, financial, regulatory updates with some experts to take your questions and to really get their updates and where they think we currently stand in amongst all of these challenges. So we've got plenty to talk about today. We've had some questions in ahead already, but if you wanted to ask some questions either in Zoom or in Facebook Live, I should be able to monitor both at the same time. That's the dream, and I'll try and make sure we can answer any questions that are posted to us as well. To quickly introduce our panel today, we've got Matt Purser and Adam Pennyfather, both from the Travel Trade Consultancy. You may know they have lots of travel industry clients and help their clients in a whole range of areas, from regulation and licensing and bonding to insurance, VAT and accounting. And also Farina, hello, who is a partner at solicitors Kemp Little, and she assists her travel clients with regulatory advice, commercial contracts, and lots more. So thank you very much for joining us today, experts. And if it would be okay to come to you first, Adam, because I know a lot of self-employed travel professionals last night were waiting with bated breath to see what might be announced by the Chancellor in terms of government support for those self-employed people. Could you summarise for us? I've already seen various questions coming in from agents today. What the Chancellor said, just as quickly as you can.
Yeah, sure. So broadly speaking, I think lots of people were relatively pleased. It's following the furloughed scheme effectively. So similar amounts. We're looking at giving self-employed people up to 80% of their self-employed average profits for the last 3 years, up to a £2,500 maximum. And that's looking at coming in early June.
And just to clarify, those people who want to try and claim for that, do they carry on working or must they stop working, a bit like the furlough scheme?
No, actually, that is one difference we're seeing to the furloughed scheme. Those people that are self-employed can continue to work over the coming months, and can, as far as I understand it at the moment, with the current guidance, can continue to work thereafter as well.
Okay, and will they have to pay that money back? It's different to the loan, isn't it? It's an actual
yes. Yeah. So I think the phrase they've used is taxable grant, and so the key word there is taxable, and so it's not necessarily you have to pay the money back, but you'll have to pay tax on it in the usual way as you would other income. And so what we're expecting, or what we're seeing, is that actually this income, if you were to receive the grant, would go on your tax return that will be due on the 31st of January 2022. And it will be taxed in the usual way.
Okay. And how exactly would a self-employed home worker, for example, go about claiming this grant now?
So actually, there is nothing to do at the moment. HMRC have specifically said, do not contact us. It will slow the process down. As you can imagine, they're quite frantic at the moment, dealing with lots of different aspects with what's going on with self-employed and other companies, individuals. And so the guidance is do nothing now. Based on eligibility criteria, HMRC will assess you, and they will get in contact over the coming months, effectively. We'll be expecting around early June.
Okay, it's quite a long time to wait.
Yes, unfortunately.
We had one agent get in touch, actually, Martin Sandland Owens. He was, obviously feeling incredibly concerned and confused at the moment. He says he did do a tax return in 2019, but before that he was on PAYE. He should still be able to claim, though, based on just that one tax return.
Yeah, so it might, yes, so for the furlough scheme would be no, obviously he's not on PAYE now, you have to be on PAYE as of the 28th of February this year, but having submitted a tax return for 18-19, there are some other criteria, I believe, appreciate this is quite fresh and last night, so but I believe it would have to be trading at present and intending to continue to trade in the next tax year, and so it depends on what his situation is at the moment. That would determine whether he would be eligible or not.
Right. And there is that very big caveat, isn't there, that you have to have put in a tax return and been self-employed previous to April 2019 in order to qualify for this grant. And heartbreaking to think of all those Thomas Cook employees who are now self-employed but haven't been self-employed for long enough to actually qualify for a loan for a grant along these lines. I mean, what is the advice for anyone who isn't going to meet these criteria but is currently self-employed?
I appreciate it. Yeah, that's extremely difficult. That, you know, if you are self-employed, depending on what your trading looks like, there may be some of the other initiatives that you could take advantage of. You know, there is automatic personal tax deferral, but again, that's not until end of July. Depending on how you trade, you may be VAT registered, and you'd have an automatic deferral on that as well, even if you are self-employed. But actually, if you've set up a self-employed business and you're trading through a business account, you could defer potentially to the CBIL scheme and take a loan out, and that appreciate that's not a grant, but that may help you know, some of those people through.
Yeah, thank you. And Sunak strongly hinted last night that there might be changes to the amount of tax and national insurance contributions self-employed people will make in future, in a sense to sort of pay this back, I think. What did you make of that?
You know, I think with a lot of these schemes, ultimately the money needs to come from somewhere, and you know, so I fully expect that further down the track we'll see some form of increase. At what bands that's introduced, I'm not quite sure. I would imagine that it's at the higher end, and so, you know, those there's already been a focus we've seen for, you know, in this initiative, that actually if you're earning more than 50,000 on average over the past 3 years, then you wouldn't qualify for this. You know, and I would imagine above that bracket is where most of this, you know, payback is going to be derived from, unfortunately.
Okay, thanks.
Can I just jump in? I think that's the problem with a lot of these schemes that people are seeing, whether it's the VAT deferment or personal tax being deferred, is that is it just kicking the problem down the road? It's, you know, at some point that money's still got to be repaid, and you know, at that point, if you haven't been earning and you've suddenly got a VAT bill to pay or your personal tax bill to pay, you know, it's only delaying the problem.
Yeah, no easy answers. Moving on to something else that we've been getting lots of questions and frustrations around in the last few days is the package travel regulations. ABT has been really pushing, obviously, to get the government to relax PTR so that travel companies don't have to give full refunds within 14 days if customers are asking for them. We haven't actually had clarity on that so far. So, Farina and Matt, as we're going into the weekend, do you think there is much chance that we're going to get any news on that front before the weekend?
I can't imagine it's going to be before the weekend, unfortunately. I mean, I think a lot of companies are starting to follow that rule, and I think ABTA have said they're not going to go after anyone that does follow that rule. But ultimately, we need government to sign off on that. And I think ABTA only said yesterday that they're hoping it will be soon, but how soon is soon, really. I know that the merchant providers follow obviously the lines followed by MasterCard and Visa, and MasterCard and Visa have said that they will follow those rules. So therefore, that will help on chargebacks. So chargebacks won't go through because they will see this refund credit note as a positive, and therefore you won't be able to apply for a chargeback. But they will only do that when it becomes legal. So we really need government to sign off on that, you know, as soon as possible.
Yeah, and I think we can't underestimate what a big ask this is, because we are asking to change the rules and to change the law, and you know, I think inevitably that is going to be a big deal. That's going to take a lot of time going through the systems and to get that rule change, and so that's why I'm assuming there has been the delay that there has been. We haven't heard as quickly as we'd like to, but I don't think we can underestimate what a big ask this is. So, you know, hopefully we'll hear soon, but it is a big deal.
And what sort of advice are you giving to, say, your travel agent customers at the moment then, Farina and Matt, and what approach are they taking?
Yeah, so most are going down the refund credit note and trying to obviously retain that cash within the business. But again, you know, that only works if the suppliers play ball as well. So if you've already prepaid suppliers, then you need that credit note coming through from them as well. And that needs to work all the way through, because again, if you're not getting the credit from your suppliers, then when they come to cash in that credit, your customer comes in to cash it in, then you're going to have the same problem that you've got to pay suppliers again. So does it only delay the problem?
It's easy to understand how frustrated and angry consumers are feeling. We've had lots of customers get in touch with us actually, and you know, they feel like their travel companies are ripping them off. But it's a complicated one to communicate, isn't it? And have you any advice for travel agents on what to say to their customers at the moment?
I think you just have to explain, as we have been doing, that it's an unprecedented situation. The PTRs were not drafted with a full scale, you know, closing down of tourism worldwide, and I think that's the big change here. Yes, we've had situations where FCO advice has changed and said don't travel to a particular destination. We've never had a situation where it's full on, you know, advice against international travel. All the destinations have their own restrictions in place, and so it is unprecedented. And I think actually, if you appeal to most customers on that basis and say, look, we've never dealt with a situation like this before. The regulations that we have were not drafted with something like this in mind. I do think most of them will, or I'd like to think that most of them would understand. But I don't underestimate that it's a really tough message to be giving. You know, you entered into a contract and with certain regulations in place, and if your terms and conditions have been drafted properly, they're drafted in compliance with the PTRs, and you're now saying, actually, we're not going to comply with the regulations, we're not going to comply with our own terms and conditions, we're going to do something a little bit different. And so I can completely understand why customers are, you know, are upset. But I think the key to sort of say is, they will still be entitled to a refund ultimately. It is basically, if that's what they want, it's basically just going to be a longer process than they otherwise would have got. But the key to all of this is survival, and to make sure that customers, companies are still surviving and are still there to be able to provide the holidays in the end. And if that means a relaxing of certain rules, then that's what has to happen. But crucially, as Matt said, until the actual law is relaxed, you know, the PTRs and the current rules do apply. So, you know, if customers are upset, if they are getting angry, that's because as it stands, the PTRs do apply to their booking, and they are entitled to a refund within 14 days. So, you know, we really do need those rules to change. And when I'm advising clients, obviously there's the commercial stance, but I also do have to give them the legal position as well. And currently that is as per the PTRs.
I think it's really important just to communicate with your clients as well. You know, travel companies corresponding with their customers to make sure that they are aware that they are looking into this and waiting to see what the government is going to do off the back of ABTA. I think not communicating with them and not speaking to them is probably where they're going to become more frustrated, really.
We actually had one specific concern raised by an agent as well, who reported that cruise lines have been telling him they'll only give a refund on the cruise element of the atoll packages that the cruise line has been selling, and won't refund on the air element, telling agents to contact the airline separately. What do you make of that?
Well, I think if they've booked the whole thing through the cruise company, then I think the cruise company has to take responsibility for the whole element of it. I think the problem has been is the airlines are looking at doing these credit notes, and they've been looking at doing that for a while. And I think the problem that's also been caused is they've only issued them in the name of the customer rather than the name of the company. So if that customer doesn't want to travel in future, they can't use that credit for any other bookings they may have. Mm-hmm. I did hear yesterday that some airlines are starting to come back on that. EasyJet was mentioned, so hopefully the airlines are coming round to actually issuing credit notes against the company rather than the customer, and I think that would make life easier from that point of view, to and ease the burden on the operators.
I also had a question come in from Pauline. She's asking, or I suppose she's just flagging something that she's experienced, which is that suppliers rebooking for 2021, she's seen a river cruise line which has gone up astronomically from £2,800 per person to £3,500 per person. Well, not astronomical, it's still a sizable increase there for the same holiday, and I guess that is something we're expecting to see a bit more of, really, as travel companies try to recoup some of lost monies. Do you think 21 pricing is going to be higher?
Yeah, I mean, under the PTRs where you offer a substitute package or a different package, if the price is higher, then you can pass that cost on to the customer. If the price is lower, so it's a lower value package, then the customer's entitled to a price reduction as well. But the problem that you have with taking that particular stance is it's going to put customers off accepting a substitute package, and that's the kind of situation where you will have customers turn around and say, well, I'm not going to pay that increase, I want a full refund instead. So I think although legally you might be able to do it, commercially you will end up with much more pushback from customers and more customers asking for a refund. So I do think commercially you really need to look at, when you increase those prices, keeping any increase to an absolute minimum to encourage customers to accept a substitute and not demand a full refund instead.
Yeah, that makes sense. How long have we got? Oh, we're on almost 20 past already. And perhaps if we can just spend a few minutes before we finish talking about the business interruption loan scheme, which is well over a week in now. Could you tell us quickly how that scheme is supposed to work, and the pros and cons of it as well from a business point of view? Are there certain business types or models that you think the loan is a really attractive option for versus others which you think actually it's not such a great solution?
I think, yeah, sure, no problem. I think in terms of suitability, it's going to vary from company to company or business to business. It is a loan, and so it does have to be paid back, really. And so I think it works if you need some working capital in the short term. I maybe want to continue growing at the same pace and develop the business, but weather this storm. But bear in mind that there are, in the first 12 months, you do get an interest and fees holiday, because the British Business Bank are going to be paying that for you. And some lenders are offering a capital repayment holiday as well, subject to criteria. And so you may have or be able to get an injection of cash that would help see you through, but ultimately you need to think about the affordability and that payback over the coming years. Is it worth recapping on the eligibility and what it actually means?
Yeah.
Just broadly, the government obviously announced, it feels like a lifetime ago now, this CBILS scheme, where effectively the British Business Bank will give a guarantee to a panel of lenders up to 80% of the loan value, and they in turn will lend to travel businesses and any other businesses as well. If the eligibility, just broadly, needs to be for business purposes. At the moment, you need to be turning over less than 45 million. We have seen that increase from 41, and we understand that's currently under review. Travel is a qualifying sector, so that's good. Importantly, you need to have a sound business proposal. So I think you need to be able to demonstrate that pre-crisis you had a good business, and ultimately you can give the lender comfort that you're going to be able to repay that, over the coming years. And you need to not be suitable for the usual lending criteria. And so what I mean by that is that actually the lender will assess you first on their standard terms, and if you don't qualify, only then will you go through to the CBILS scheme.
Okay. And is this something you have been working with any clients on to sort of support them through it?
Yes, yeah, quite a few. There's been a lot of interest. We have seen a bit of backlash over the past 24 to 48 hours because of a lot of the lenders are requiring personal guarantees from people. And so understandably, a lot of people are quite frustrated about that, because there's, a lot of uncertainty. The Chancellor, makes some bold statements, but actually that when it comes down to the details, people are putting their own assets on the line. And so, a lot of people understandably don't think that's fair. But we're certainly still working with a number of clients, still a lot of interest in it. I think yesterday, the Chancellor announced how many applications there have been in the last few days, and that was an astronomical amount. And so there's definitely a lot of interest in it, and I think there still will be. Hopefully there's a relaxation around the guarantee and security side of things, but certainly it can be helpful in the short term, for sure.
Okay, had a question come in on Facebook Live, actually, from Peter Foster. He was just asking about the self-employed people measures. Says he appreciates there's no answer yet, but in about a week's time, in the normal course of events, HMRC would be encouraging us to submit tax returns for 2019-20. Any chance that they might move the goalposts to take that year into account, do you think, especially as the systems won't be up and running until June? Have they been talking about this most recent financial year, or are they really sticking?
I haven't seen that. That's certainly not in the guidance. Really appreciate all the help that's coming out today, and I think the government have moved relatively, or as quickly as they can. And with other initiatives, we've seen the goalpost moved, and so I wouldn't say it's not possible, but not something that we're aware of at the moment.
Okay, great. And yeah, other listeners tuning in to say they've experienced similar things, with the price of rebooking for next year being £1,000 more for the same holiday. Just in October, actually, trying to move to October, and it's over £1,000 more for the same holiday. It's really frustrating. And yeah, perhaps we'll have to ask operators to heed your advice, Farina, on that one, that if it means a cancellation instead, that just doesn't really make any sense for anybody, although everyone understands the challenges at the moment. Another question's come in from James Hill. He's asked, can credits not be made transferable to another person, which would make them more acceptable in place of a refund, and also resolve the issue of airlines issuing credits in the name of the passenger rather than the packaging company?
Yeah, I think that's what everyone is pushing for, to be honest. I think that, there's no guarantee that those customers are going to want to travel again. And if you've already prepaid a supplier, then yes, it makes sense for that to be transferred across in the name of the company rather than the name of the passenger. That's certainly not what happened at the beginning, but hopefully things are starting to turn. Certainly what we're hearing about one of the airlines yesterday.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. And another one. Listener said they've just called the Metro Coronavirus Business Support Team. Has been directed to a voicemail saying that if I'm calling in regards to a business interruption loan, they are closely working with the BB Bank, and as soon as they have any more information, will be posted on the Metro website. Things haven't been finalised yet, which is really disappointing. And TTG lobby government to improve the speed of this, but we can certainly try. I think, like with so many things, it's taking a long time for processes to be put in place. But yeah, it's the loan side of things. Adam, you say they just need to give that one a little bit more time.
Yes, we're seeing, there was a statement, the Chancellor said that Monday the 23rd, I think was Monday just gone, that was a release date, and so that created a lot of expectation that the banks were going to open up the doors and you could start to apply. I've seen some lenders come out with applications, but then that they're changing daily because it's not quite clear and they've clearly been rushed out. Others have got, you can express your interest. And people like Metro are just not quite ready yet. What we are seeing, though, is that actually banks are prioritising their own customers, and so I'd advise you to check the accredited list on the BBB's website. If your bank is on there, get in contact just to make sure you're on their radar. But what we're also seeing is that clearly, if they're your current bank provider, they can see how much cash you've got in the bank. We've experienced customers that have phoned their bank and they've said, well, we're prioritising people that are going to run out of money tomorrow. We can see you've got money in the bank. You're okay. We'll speak to you next week. And so there is this prioritisation that we're experiencing. So definitely put yourself on the radar. And if you are in a bad position, certainly get in contact with your relationship manager, and hopefully you get pushed to the front of the queue.
Yeah. Thank you. Somebody else has commented to say she's had a voucher from EasyJet this morning, who advised they can be transferred to anybody. Oh, so just giving us an update there. So it sounds like EasyJet is issuing vouchers which can be transferred.
Yeah, it was EasyJet that I'd heard about yesterday. So hopefully the other airlines will follow suit as well.
Great. Okay. We were keen to try and keep this under half an hour, so I think we will bring it to a close there. We've managed to get through all of our questions, I believe, unless I've missed any on our multiple platforms. But I think we've managed it. And Adam, Matt, and Farina are helping us around the clock really with inquiries. So if there's anything you wanted to ask that you didn't get the chance to, then send me an email on pjax@ttgmedia.com, and I'm sure they'll be very, very willing to lend you some further expertise even once this has finished. So big thank you to our panelists for joining us and giving up the time. And thanks to everybody that tuned in as well. Thank you for asking your questions. Hope you found it useful, and we'll be back again at 11 o'clock next Friday, by which time I'm sure there'll be plenty more to talk about. Eat well in the meantime, and try and have a rest this weekend if you possibly can. Goodbye, everybody.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.